Okay, in this video we are going to talk about death and loss, and because that's a part of life and you're going to deal with it. And I know lots of you already this semester have dealt with some of this. You talked to me about it. So all right, let's talk about coping with loss, because there's going to be people in your life, right? Friends, family that are going to pass away. And right away, a lot of times we don't want to accept these things, right? So the first step in coping with a loss is that this person is no longer around in physical form, right? And it's like, that can be hard, but allowing yourself to accept that is, I guess, the first step, right? Is the model, right? And then next, there's going to be sadness, pain, and grief, and you need to learn how to work through that. And so, this is a long process, and it takes people different lengths of time depending on how close the relationship is, right? And this is always tough to deal with. So, trying to remember this person, right? That's what the funeral is about, and like sending them off, I guess, right? So that remembering, allowing yourself to be sad, right? So you need to give yourself some space to work through grief. And then along with this and working through this is you're going to have physical things that happen to you, right? Crying and lack of hunger and not being able to sleep and all this type of stuff, right? And you're going to feel lost, maybe purposelessness, right? And so when you're dealing with this stuff, one of the things that I like to think about is just taking care of your body, because you're going to be dealing with a lot, which is going to wreak havoc on your body, right? You're not going to be able to sleep. Well, try to sleep. And exercise can help you sleep. And exercise can help get like emotions out and so on. So I think working on those things, right? Doing what you can to get some sleep at least. And then eating. A lot of times, and this goes for like breakups as well, any type of loss, right? It's like you lose your appetite. And so you almost need to force yourself to get back to basics and just do these things that your body needs. And then along with that, trying to find some purpose, right? Something to do. My mom's husband recently died, and his grandson, who has a tough life, right? And his grandpa was everything to him, right? And I was at the funeral, and because I know, purpose allows us to potentially move forward, right? With the tragedy of life. I saw him just kind of standing alone, struggling, and I was like, okay, well, we need some purpose. And I also saw my mom struggling with the fact that she wasn't eating, right? And because, you're not hungry and you don't want to do that kind of stuff. So I was like, oh, look at this. So I went and I got my, little stepbrother, and I said, okay, let's, look at your grandma. She needs some food, right? So let's go get her some food. And all of a sudden he gets a smile, and we go get her some food, right? Didn't help, it helped him in a little tiny moment, right? And then so he gets him some food, goes and brings it to his grandma. She could barely eat, right? But she had a few bites. Okay, well, that's something, right? And then I know she wasn't eating, so I'm like, hey, let's go get her some coffee, put some sugar in there, because sugar's going to help you deal with that. So try to take care of yourself, right? And work through that. And it's a process, right? It takes people different amounts of time. Allow yourself to work through that. Next, you're going to have to adjust to a new environment and move forward, right? And there's going to be loneliness involved, because there's going to be a hole in your life. And this is one of the reasons why we need a community around us, because, if you don't have a good community and you lose that person that's super close with you, it's going to be harder to move forward, right? Because if you have people around you that can hang out and, be there for you, you want to develop that throughout your life, right? We want to make sure that we have that. So, and I think before we go through all this stuff, preparation, right? Mental preparation. I think we should put some thought into losing our parents, right? Some of us have already lost our parents, and it's like, if you're not, have you thought about the scenario where your parents aren't around anymore, right? We want to build ourselves into a person who can stand on our own 2 feet and manage the tragedy of life, right? And that's not an easy thing to do, but I think it's important to start preparing for these things, because they are going to happen, right? We're going to lose grandparents and parents and friends and all kinds of stuff. And then next is logistics, and this comes back to like maintaining good relationships, because when someone dies, all kinds of bad things, just along with the death, right? But there's family squabbles that happen, and there's money issues and all these things. And so I think it's worthwhile to potentially talk with your parents about, what does the landscape look like if they pass away? And, you're young now, so you might not need to worry about this yet, but I've had this conversation with my parents, right? And it's like, who gets what happens, what here and there. And it's like, it's better to have that stuff figured out beforehand, so that, families aren't fighting over money and different things, because that does happen, right? And so I think a little preparation goes a long way. So if you haven't talked to your parents about this, it can be a hard thing to talk about. You can tell them that it's an assignment, right, to talk to them about, what goes on, and preparation for that, if that helps you start that conversation. But I think it's good to have. And along with that, with loss, we're going to die as well as individuals. And so learning to deal with that. So, all kinds of people, people just get terrible diseases, terrible things happen all the time, right? And it's, first, you're going to be in denial. Imagine you got diagnosed with cancer, right? And some of you probably have had some things like this happen before. And it's like right away, you don't want to believe it, right? And then oftentimes you go through anger, right? And so it's good to know these things so that you can be prepared for what's coming, right? And you can get mad, right, at the world. And it's like, you don't want to become bitter and angry and resentful. And part of keeping this at bay is doing something with your life that is worthwhile. And we're going to talk about that in a second here. The next can be bargaining, right? Like maybe talking with God, or, saying, if I do these things, because I don't even know how I'm going to be able to handle this, dying, it's a tough thing. And then depression, because it's like, well, it's a hard thing to deal with. And then acceptance, right? And I think one of the best things you can do in order to deal with the tragedy of life is to find something to do with your life, right? Which is going to be very or find something to do with your life that justifies the tragedy of life, right? So make your life worthwhile, right? And sitting on Instagram all day is not going to make your life worthwhile. You got to go out there, experience life, develop relationships, accomplish goals, right? That's what's going to make the suffering of life worthwhile. When people are depressed, the past looks terrible, the future looks terrible, all this stuff. And it's like, you need some type of vision with your life of what would make your life worth living, right? And ultimately, if you do something that makes your life worth living, you might find some acceptance in the end of your life, right? So, all right, that's all I have for you today. Put some thought into this stuff, know this process here, and I will see you in the next video.